Welcome back for part two of the podcast. What is sales? And like I said at the end of part one, promise you at the end of this part two, I will actually give my own personal definition. So that could have been the first question: what is sales? And the answer: two sentences. It's just a few words, actually, in my opinion. But in between is like 1 hour and 3/4 of content regarding the same question: what is sales? So let's summarize a bit what we covered in part one. We started with definitions on the net. What is sales? And I found that these definitions were very narrow, not wide enough, and not complete enough, not correct also sometimes. We jumped on the net asking internet what is the reputation of salespeople, and immediately the first 10 hits were about the bad reputation of salespeople. And in my opinion, this has to do with the fact that all the old styles are still valid, still prevalent, still valid, still prevalent today. Feature dumping, show up, throw up, spray and pray, features and benefits, where the benefits are not actually relevant customer benefits, so not customer centric, but the selling company or salesperson made those benefits in their own brain, which means actually it's not a benefit, it's still a feature. It's actually an assumption. And mind you, 95%, and I'm making this number up, it can be more, it can be less, but majority of marketing departments still thinks this way. They create all kind of content, online, offline, brochures, all kind of text, websites. All of that is still features and benefits. We think, we project what we think is a benefit upon our prospects and customers. But that's an assumption. We don't know if it's relevant or if these benefits are actually perceived that way, um, through in the mind of our prospect and customers. So that is still what I call inside out thinking, where real sales, modern sales, starting like mid 80s, is the other way around. It's outside in. And I covered on the internet, on the web, a few websites where they were like rating the 12 best sales methodologies and the 17 best sales methodologies. I also covered trying to redefine what we're actually talking about. We're talking about sales process, sales methodology, sales methods, sales models, and all of that is blurry. It's mixed. It's used wrong. So I try to make all those definitions as explicit and clear from each other as possible. And we discovered that a sales process and a sales methodology is not the same thing. And actually also the term sales methodology is wrong, because methodology is studying methods. Like if you have studied sociology, it is the study of studying social dynamics. If you have a study called psychology, this is the studying of and all the research of, encompassing all the research of studying the human psyche. So methodology is the total cluster name, category name of studying all methods. So if we talk about sales methodology, this is a study all sales methods, which means that all the sales methodologies out there are sales methods, and us here now studying all of them, that's methodology. Model we found is a 2 or 3D graphic representation of whatever thing or person. So if we talk about a sales model, if we make a picture how a sales process looks like the graphic representation, that's a sales model. But it's not the process itself, and it's certainly also not a method. It's just the graphic representation. So what else did we do? Yeah, we discussed a few um, popular sales methods and sales examples of sales processes, and we also found, apart from the fact that process and methodology, actually method, are often blurry and used through each other incorrectly, the same happens with qualification. So there are a lot of so-called sales methodologies out there being promoted, being sold also as a sales methodology, when it's actually not much more than a qualification tool, a qualification instrument. And I discussed a few with you with a few examples. So part two, what we will do here in part two is I will give an overview, my own take on an overview of the evolution of the most important sales methods. Mind you that again, I'm saying that all of the old styles are still prevalent. It's not like everybody in sales jumped on the new way of the new paradigm shifting way of doing sales outside in. It's not like that. Unfortunately, I think it's still a minority. And this also explains that bad reputation, slick, lying, pushy, manipulative, using tricks, all of that. And we also know that all of those manipulative tricks are part of a win-lose strategy, and also will create a win-lose outcome. So just only short-term success. If you want long-term success, you will need a win-win strategy, looking for the win-win outcome. So the most modern methodologies and styles of sales actually indeed look for that win, that positive outcome for the prospect and the customer. I will also present you my own favorites, 3, 4 favorites, and we will discover there's not so much difference between them. It's just terminology here and there, which is different. And yeah, that's it. That's part two. Let's see what we have here. I have here an example of a sales process, and you will see that qualification is part of the sales process, but it's not the sales process itself. And this is a template I use at many of my clients. Sales process in direct sales, in B2B. It's not channel. Channel is a different process. The stages. Suspect stage, SQL, sales qualified lead stage, discovery stage, solution stage, quote stage, closing stage. Quote can be part of solution, but often we like to measure the success of quoting different from the success of the solution presenting stage. Therefore, I have pulled it out. There are many different names, roughly describing the same thing. Suspect phase, what is the goal there? What are the main sales activities? What are the checks, the qualification, and the duration? You can just ignore this. This is just an example, doesn't matter. We find and create matching leads, target group, and we try to find that profile of business, in this case B2B, which matches our targeting profile. If we're super specialized in software for the logistic sector, we try to find potential prospects, suspects, creating prospects in the logistics center. Marketing works them and try to create sales qualified leads. When it's sales qualified leads, when we have all the checks available, which could indicate they could become more than just a lead. We don't put leads in our pipeline where we know they will never become anything else than a lead. That's a waste of energy. The goal of the SQL to fill your pipeline on the top of the pipeline, if we have a 3D model graphic representation of the pipeline that could look like a funnel. It's called the sales funnel. Sales funnel, by the way, of course, has the same stages as the sales process. It's just the same thing. The sales process is the stages. A single lead opportunity is worked through by sales, and the funnel is all of them together resulting in the funnel shape, because the deeper you go, the less there are. So fill your pipeline, your funnel with opportunities. Discovery, find hooks. Anything where you can, like a hook where you can see your solution as a coat, where you can hang your coat on. Any hook. What is the goal of solution, presenting the solution? Create preference for what? For you. This is where we actually sell. This is the first part where we actually sell. The quote, same thing, create preference. You want to be the number one on the shortlist. That's why we do all this. And of course, the goal of closing is getting the deal. By the way, the better you perform, so the how, not just the stages, but especially the how well you do this, so being skilled, effective, the less you need to close. The main sales activity, and of course this is not complete. This is the main necessary converting sales activity. Get all that info and put it in the CRM. Have all that info that we think that now it's a sales qualified lead. You often see that the main sales activity results in the next one. Goal of the next one. What do we do in the SQL phase stage? We connect. We do email marketing, we do cold calling, we follow up, and we try to connect. We contact. So from contact to contract. That's the main activity. To get that hook already, to get that contact, that connection, when we can actually start the rest of the process. So again, the output of this stage is the input of the next stage, and the main activity is converting from one stage to the next. Discovery, find hooks. What do you mean, Remy, hooks? Well, you perform a discovery, and like John, as wide and deep as possible. These are the activities, is what you do by asking really many good questions. Preferably open-ended questions. By active listening, you will find hooks. What are those hooks? Any need, any problem, any goal, any ambition, any challenges, any pain, any gap, any potential gain, potential or existing pain and potential gain, pains and gains, to meet, to match, to solve. Before we start to solve in the solution presenting stage, we need to find that what should be solved, right? So the gap also. All of that is a hook. And what you see here maybe already is that I'm using a combination of different sales methodologies. The value is there, the outcome is there, the need payoff is there, the pains and the gains are there, consultative selling is there, spin is there. It's a mix, a blending of the most effective and successful sales methodologies, methods in between. Then when we have all that information, don't forget anything, we present the matching solution. The quoting, what's the main activity there? Okay, you send a proposal and you quote and you follow up. Exactly, the follow-up is part of the quoting stage. Then we can measure the success of it. And you will find if you split it like that, that the conversion of solution to quote is not 100%, and quote to contract is not 100%. That means that it's legit to have the separate stage there. Closing, negotiating is not a phase or a stage, it's part of the closing. Negotiating and closing is mixed in time. It's the same stage. It's not that you start negotiating first and then close. Actually, you start to close first and only negotiate after when necessary. And who's doing the initiative there? That should always be your prospect. We never start to negotiate. Why would you? Qualifications and checks. Here we have qualification. Contact details, sector, branch, potential need. How do we know there's a potential need? Because we have fulfilled that need in that sector previously. DMU, potential need, if possible, potential value, but that's something you find in discovery most of the times. DMU, so you will find that in the whole sales process, I am repeating DMU all the time because it tends to change. And we need to identify and engage that DMU in every stage, not just at the end. If you do the DMU identifying, you will be surprised by suddenly appearing surprising stakeholders who join in the solution stage, or even worse, join in the closing stage and suddenly start negotiating with you. And we did not yet establish a relation. We don't even know what they find important. And if we present a solution to a new member in the DMU at the solution stage, we're doing assumptions because we don't know what this person finds important. That's just, again, throw up, show up, throw up. Spray and pray. That's not sales as we do it. If you want to have a discovery phase stage in your sales process, you perform a consultative style of methodology, means that you ask real good questions in your discovery stage, means that you do perform a discovery with all the members of the DMU. All right, so you will see that there's a lot of medic and medpic and target account selling and a Scotsman and all of those nice qualification abbreviations. This is a sales process template. It's not complete, but it's already quite accurate. But at least everything what is here is minimal necessary. I promised you, and also this one is not complete, I promised you the evolution of sales methodologies. Methods. Let's start with the 19th century snake oil salesman. And what you see here is a lot of feature dumping. Also, a lot of lying. Yeah, if the bad reputation of salespersons starts here. Is this in the past? No, this style of sales still exists. Next. One of my favorites. Favorite book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is considered the first book about sales. 1936. There's still a training agency institute in the US called Dale Carnegie. He is our grandfather. This is this is how it all started. We got in the 50s the AIDA model, awareness, interest, desire, action. It's still a good model. And it's not a model, it's a structure, but okay. And it's used in marketing quite a lot. This is very famous. It's from the 70s. And my very, very first sales training was about the F&B model. Features and benefits, and sometimes called features, advantages, benefits. Very rigid. And all those benefits came from the feature. So you have a feature, and that feature automatically produced benefit. And that benefit was thought of by the company themselves, by the supplier, by the salesperson. So all of these benefits coming from all of those features with or without advantage in between are assumptions. These are not relevant, not customer-centric, customer-relevant, prospect-relevant benefits. A benefit is only, so actually it's not a benefit. A benefit is only a benefit when it's relevant for the other person. All of these modules, structures, methodologies, methods have an inside-out perspective. We think that this product or service or feature provides you that benefit. We decided that for you. So that's not customer-centric. They call themselves customer-centric. All of it is just an assumption. It's inside-out perspective. Then on the other side of the dotted line, we have an outside-in perspective. Starting with our perspective from the outside and then work our way back to the inside. What is the outside-in perspective? We start with what benefits is our prospective potential customer actually looking for? What is relevant for them? So then we talk about real benefits, a real outcome, real value, real solution, real return on investment. If we skip, here it comes, if we skip one of the DMU members, one of the decision makers in the decision making unit, we skip that person during discovery because we were poor in qualification or we were relying on our internal champion too much. And then suddenly we are surprised during the solution stage with a new stakeholder, a new DMU member, and then we present our solution. That's not a solution because we don't know what is relevant for that person. In the 80s, that was the start of consultative selling. In my opinion, spin belongs to the family, the category of consultative selling, like also challenger sale. Having a challenging attitude, a challenging mindset, challenging behavior should be a part of the standard skill set of a good consultant. Spin selling, there we have it. I put it as next consultative selling. It is consultative selling, but I put it next because it's so damn good and it's already 45 years old, 40 years old. Challenger sale, again, it's part of consultative selling, but it was a breakthrough. And it was a breakthrough because the whole dynamic of sales and purchasing changed because of internet. Gap selling, I put it here because it's one of my favorites. Still, for me, it's part of consultative selling. Solution selling. If the solution is based on discovering problems during discovery, if the value in value-based selling is based on discovering potential value, where can we add value? If the outcome you present in your solution stage is based on potential outcome which you found in a discovery, all of that is consultative selling. Value-based selling, solution selling, outcome-based selling, it's all consultative selling. It's a different phrasing. It's the same thing. Oof, I'm not making a few people happy here. So yeah, in the 2000s, we got solution selling, value-based selling, outcome-based selling. Before challenger sale, it's still being used, and we got gap selling in 2020. The spin funnel. So what I will do now with you is I walk through a few of my favorites. I think you already noticed that spin is one of my favorites. In spin selling, it's not just selling, it is also the spin discovery, right? So the selling we actually only do in the solution stage. So that's the spin funnel, the spin interview. And what is it? Well, that's a structure you use in the discovery to find everything you need to in order to offer a good solution, matching solution, and you can still use those same 4 layers also to structure your presentation of the solution. Discovering the so-called spin funnel. Discovery using the so-called spin funnel situation layer, which requires situational questions, RSheet. Problems layer, which requires questions which look for problems. You call the problems questions. Implication layer, I changed that into impact. And implication is just a consequence. Impact is a stronger word. What impact does this problem have? I lay here the foundation by discovering that impact. I lay here the foundation for quantifying the gap. So there you will see the blending of spin and gap selling. Needs layer. So it's a fantastic abbreviation. Spin. Preferably, I would put here outcome. Outcomes layer. So therefore, it started as needs layer and later became need payoff layer. But SPIP doesn't sound so well and SPIO doesn't sound so well. So yeah, let's keep spin. It sounds much better, but let's not forget that's actually about outcomes. What are those outcomes? Pains and gains. It sounds so well. If you find pains and gains, you will always find a hook. When and why? B2B, outside-in approach. That's clear. Focus on problem solving versus features and benefits. So yeah, of course it's solution selling. Of course this is consultative selling. Challenger sale. Okay, interesting. So apparently 54% of high performers in complex sales are challenger sales. Interesting. Only 4% relation builders, problem solvers. Whoa! So solution sales is not enough, right? Hard workers, yeah, hard workers always get discipline, always gets you further than just motivation. Lone wolves. This is very stereotyped, right? The lone wolf salesperson. They tend to be also a hard worker and they just go on their own. Don't mind them. They leave them alone. That's fine. But apparently, if you add a challenging attitude and behavior, and also the 3 T's after a good discovery, what is it? Not a skill set. It's attitude, behavior, and approach. Challenging. There are 5 types of sales reps. It's a necessary mindset for consultative selling. When and why do we do challenger sale? Complex B2B. Outside-in approach. Consultation finds place far in the customer buying, customer orientation process. This is why it started challenging. Gap selling, there's the current state, the customer is here. This is the gap before you came along. This is the future state. There's a value, of course, in between the two. That's why we want to quantify it. And of course, there are facts, problems, impact. There we have it. Impact. Interesting. Root cause. I would do root cause before impact. Emotional part. Oh, this is the first one where you put emotion in the layers. I like impact more than implication. And I like adding emotion because it's the rational brain process meeting criteria and the rational logic customers prospect use is just justifying the belly-based emotion. You will hardly, I will not say not, but you will hardly find any decision where the decision maker goes against their feeling. So, gap selling, what is it? Consultative selling, different framing. It's not so super much different than spin. It's adding impact instead of implication, and it's adding emotion. It's adding the root cause. Is the root cause really necessary? Maybe, because knowing the root cause prevents us making the same mistake again, so that will be part of the solution. Okay. The gap is the delta, the difference between the current and the future. Quantified, the money gap. Oh, sorry, this should be a bracket. And involve emotion. Nice. When and why? Complex B2B. Outside in. Makes the challenge, which we got from Challenger Sale, transparent and explicit, and therefore it will drive urgency. Outcome-based selling. Long-term goals. Existing challenges, that's current state. Long-term goals, that's future state. So here we have gap. Crucial KPIs, quantifying the solution itself. Nothing new here. What is it? Still fits in consultative selling. When and why? Complex B2B. Outside in. You can flawlessly merge spin, challenger, and gap with outcome-based selling. Is there really something new here? Actually, I'm missing something, because what is missing is that in order to find crucial KPIs, in order to find their long-term goals, in order to find existing challenges and to identify the gap and quantify the gap, and in order to find a matching solution which provides that outcome, what do we need to do? A freaking damn good, wide and deep discovery. I'm putting the JUNGian funnel here. The JUNGian funnel. It's not the original name, but I'm calling it the JUNGian funnel, as this system, this method, is mainly being used in the Netherlands. And it's just because there's a very big, famous, successful, effective training institute which uses a specific type of questioning, of funneling in the questioning, in the interview, in the what we call now the discovery, and what they call the need analysis. In that need analysis, they use a specific type of interviewing, a specific type of structuring questions. And I call it the Jungian funnel because it's based on the psychology model of the brain of human beings from Carl Jung. And you might know that Carl Jung was Freud's most famous student. So first we start with that model, which is a simplified 3D graphic representation of the human brain. Let's imagine the human brain as a circle, and where we have on top the conscious, and it sort of fades to darker, 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 darker into the deeper and deeper and deeper layers of the unconscious or subconscious. Sometimes this is also represented as an iceberg by the psychologist Herzberg. So you have Herzberg representation of the human brain represent the 3D graphic representation was like an iceberg. 10% is above water and 90% is underwater. This. When we are in a sales meeting, we try to find needs. You would find normally 3 to 4 specific needs. That can be, yeah, I think quality is important. I think good service is important. I think good outcome is important. Good implementation is important. Usually there are 3, 4 sort of bit vague type of needs. And those vague type of needs need to be clarified more. Usually it is like that 3 needs are right at the service. They're immediately available. What do you think is important when choosing the ideal provider? This, and what else? That. So need for would be usually just below the service line between conscious and subconscious. But we know nothing yet. So the model of this the brain, of the Jungian representation of the brain, is that we think in pictures, like a dream. If I ask you what means quality for you, you will start to have a short movie in your head, a picture, a movie. And everybody has a different movie, so we can use the same words. We think in pictures, we think in movies. In this way of asking in interviewing, we're asking for those pictures. So we will find the images slash pictures slash MPEGs, movies, short MP4, like it's a short movie. If I ask you what is good service for you, you will start think back of an occasion, an experience where you had good and where you had bad service. There's a picture, there's a small movie in your head. Below that, there's a bucket. That bucket needs to be filled according to this model. That bucket is never completely filled. It always needs to be filled. According to Jung, there are 4 buckets in our brain which constantly needs to be filled. It's like the subconscious or conscious deep layer need. There are 4. There's recognition, there's efficiency, there is fun or comfort, and there is security. Those are the 4 main basic needs of humanity, according to Carl Jung. Those 4 basic needs also play an important role in business as they are projected into rational goals. So all of those 4 buckets we have in our very subconscious deep brain, and all of them need to be filled. But according to Jung, there's always one dominant, and that is depending on the type of person, or actually it's the other way around. The dominant motive sort of defines the behavior, the type of person. So profiling, all of those profiling systems like DISC and Insights Discovery and Enneagram and MBTI, all of them are based on Jung, are based on those 4 basic profiles. Those 4 motives are already discussed with you, and that main motive, and because Jung was Swiss and Freud also, it's in German, it's called Leitmotiv. So in this way of interviewing at this company, very successful and also creating successful sales reps, they used the Jungian model as a way of interviewing prospects, trying to find the needs, the pictures behind the needs, how they perceive that need, and what is the leitmotif underneath it. That resulted in a way of asking questions called what I call now the Jungian funnel. So here's my take. And everything's fine. At least have a sales process. Make sure the sales process is complete and correct and follows the customer journey. Make sure that you define sub-goals per stage. Make sure that you define the main necessary converting sales activity per stage. Make sure that you have not only the overall sales duration, cycle time duration, but also the duration of the separate stages. Make sure that you also know which checks to have, to ask, to check, to qualify at each stage during the process. Qualification is part of the process, makes you more efficient. More important to be successful is effectiveness. So how well an activity is what you do, a skill is how well you do. And all of those methods are okay. I'm, as you now noticed, a big fan of spin and a big fan of consultative selling and solution and value-based outcome. It's all part of it. Challenge, it's part of consultative selling. And yes, of course, there should be discovery, and yes, of course, we present a solution, and yes, of course, we close, etc. I would just like to add an extra abbreviation, something easy to remember, and it's the A5 method. What is the A5 method? It's the sales process. And again, the skills is not part of the process, it's part of methodologies. How well you do, this does not say anything about how well you do. We have time, and I put it on the x-axis. We have the y-axis, and that is interest or result. And I'm gonna have a 3D graphic representation, in other words, sales model of the sales process, which is easier to remember and also easy because the abbreviation is easier to remember. It's A5. So this process is looking like S-curve. Why is it an S-curve? Because it takes a little time, like almost half of the time, to start building and igniting that interest. It's never a curve like this. It starts slow, that interest. It doesn't start at zero, otherwise you would not have an appointment. What do we have here? This is the first stage in the sales process. That is acquisition. Acquisition is nothing more than starting the process of igniting interest. People ask me, what do you do for a living? I'm an interest builder. That's what we do. So acquisition is the first stage, the first warming up to interest. Next phase, agenda. Agenda we put on the table, we discuss with our prospect, what are we going to talk about? You should always have an agenda. And an introduction or even a short elevator pitch is part of the agenda. What comes after agenda, what we used to call discovery, what I call analysis. It's just analyzing everything. And yeah, the situation, the needs, the pains, the tension, the problems, not necessarily very strict in those JUNGian funnel way of asking, just gather, dance through the layer, or if you're more into martial art, it's martial art through the separate layers. If that's value, outcome, benefits, pains, potential gains, or gap, or the quantifying of the gap, don't go too structured, because that is not a human conversation. The more you do it, the better you become. Dance, martial art. What can we use? And again, here we have those 4 layers. We find pains and gains using a spin interview through the situation layers, problems layers, impact layers, need layers, but not too rigid, please. Next stage, of course, the advice stage. It's not only a solution stage. We advise a solution. We advise our IDs how to close that gap between the current state and the future better state. And of course, you can still use that same substructure of spin also in the advising stage. How can we think of an A in a closing stage? Well, what is the goal of that stage? The goal is that we agree. So there we have it. We have an A5 structure, the A5 method, or the A5 process. Acquisition, agenda, analysis, advice, agree. It covers everything. And talking about those different methods, note that consultative selling describes in their terminology, in their name, it's like what you do, how you do that. Solution selling and outcome-based selling and value-based selling describe where we're working towards to, what we try to find. We could also easily gap selling the same. We try to find the gap. That should be the outcome of the discovery. And we try to close that gap. That should be the outcome of the solution. And I like that part. So I think our main focus in our mindset in B2B complex outside in sales How can I contribute? To which business drivers can I contribute? Which, how, and why? I also promised you my own definitions, and a few already came through the podcast. My own definitions of the sales process: a fixed state of consecutive stages salespersons work through on a lead from contact to contract. Okay. Sales methodology, or better, method. The why, what, and how a salesperson or salespersons works through the sales process. Why they follow that process this way, what's the philosophy behind it? Why do we do consultative selling? Why do we do solution selling? Why do we do etc. etc.? What are we looking for? Okay, value, outcome, gap. And how do we execute the activities described in the sales process? We need to ask questions. We need to find medic. We need to find the pains and the gains. How well am I good? How good am I in it? That requires skills and mindset. That's all about quality, about effectiveness. That's sales methodology. Sales method, same. Sales model, graphic, 3D graphic, or 2D graphic representation of a sales process or a sales methodology. What is the difference between activities and skills? Activities, what actions does a salesperson execute during the process? Actionable steps, somebody wrote it like that. And skills is how well you execute them. Sales, this is the final piece. Famous last words. What do I think is sales? And we started this podcast with the definition, what is sales? I asked you to put it in the comments. So sales is creating perceived value. It's not objective. It's perceived, it's subjective. I'm missing something. Missing. We want to bend that AIDA, that action, that decision, towards us. That's the selling part in consultative selling. That's where consultative selling differs from consulting, from being consultative, being consultant. At the end, we try to bend that perceived value towards what? A preference to us. So for me, sales is the art. It's not just skill, because we also need Fingerspitzengefühl. It's also a dance. It's also martial art. It's the art of creating preference. Long podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I promise every time I try to be concise and more concise. And I will put chapters in the podcast so it's easier for you to jump to certain parts. Let's summarize it. We started with definitions of what is sales. We'll shortly discuss the reputation, bad reputation many salespeople have still in the market with laymen and lay people. Does it exist, that word, lay people? Laymen, normal people on the street. And why is that? That's because they're still using old-fashioned sales methodologies. They still use features and benefits. They still use feature dumping. They still use lying, saying anything in order to get a deal, the win-lose strategy. The more we realize that it on the long term doesn't work, the more salespeople will be authentic and have genuine intentions, really solving something. I like this phrase: "Don't sell me something, solve me something." That's what it's all about. So we discussed also the reputation of salespeople. We looked in what in definitions like what is actually a process, what is actually a methodology, what is a method, what's a model, the difference, how it's wrongly used. We went online to first hits at Google, showing us 12 and 17 most popular and best sales methodologies, which were not methodologies of methods, and half of them were not even that. They were just a qualification set checklist. They were also not the best, and there was also speak of a customer-centric approach, implying that all the previous ones were not customer-centric, which is of course ludicrous. And I discussed with you, I showed with you my own take on it, my favorites, and how you blend and dance with them. So, hope you enjoyed this one. And I think that my next podcast will be about objections handling. So, with this, I say, bella ciao, and see you soon.